Hi everyone, it's Lisa. Thank you so much for joining me today. In today's video, I'm going to be making 10 cards with Pink and Main's August 2021 Crafty Courtyard kit. So here's a look at the 10 cards, and I previously did an unboxing video which I will link down below, but here's a quick look at everything that's included in the kit. It includes a 6x6 paper pad, a large stamp set, there's an embossing folder, a heart stencil, some shaker pieces, there's also some dies and some enamel dots, and of course you get some cardstock. So if you want to see an up close look at everything that's included in the kit, go down to the description box and take a look at that video link. So this paper pad that's included in the kit has 2 sheets of die cuts that can be cut out using the dies that came in the kit. So the globe with the flowers and then the other bunch of flowers and the hearts, those are all part of the stamp set. So they match the stamp set perfectly. But what's great about these is that you can die cut them and they make for such quick and easy cards. Now if you still wanted more of these, you have the stamp set, you can stamp it, and you can also color them up. So for my first card, I'm going off of a card sketch, and it's the Mojo Monday sketch 525. So I have a piece of that plaid pattern paper. It's cut to 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. I have a 3-inch circle cut out of the pink with the white polka dot paper, and then I have a 1.75-inch circle as well, and that's cut out of the yellow with the white polka dot paper. And then I have that strip that's cut out of some of the solid cardstock, and that is a 1/2 inch strip, so it's 1/2 by 3 7/8. I also stamped out a sentiment, sending a world of thanks, and I stamped it on just some white cardstock, and now I'm just fussing cutting around it rather than keeping it completely straight, because that word world in the sentiment, it's a little bit larger than the rest of the text, so I just decided it would look better just to fussy cut around that sentiment. So I'm just going to go ahead and adhere all of these layers down. Now I do want to mention that I will have card measurements for all of my cards in my blog at lisamearsdesigns.com, and I will have an up close look at all of these final pictures. This is a piece of the glitter paper. It's yellow glitter paper that's included in the kit, and I just cut that down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, but I did cut out the center because I wanted to save that glitter paper rather than waste it. Just put a piece of white cardstock in the middle just to make sure that everything is flat when I adhere that final top layer. So I do include some of the epoxy dots that are included in the kit. So here's my final card up close next to the card sketch. And here's an up close look at the final card. So moving on to card 2, I did stamp out the globe stamp, and I'm coloring it up. I'm doing some watercoloring. I stamped it out onto some Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I used an archival black ink to stamp it. I use the Forever Black ink from the Stamps of Life, but any archival ink will do if you're doing watercoloring. The colors I'm using are the Zig markers, and I'm using the violet for the dark purple and the lilac for the light purple. I'm also using the blender to blend those colors out, and then for the greens I'm using May Green as well as the blender to blend it out, and then the yellow I used the lemon yellow, and the pink is the light carmine. I'm using the sentiment "You Mean the World to Me," and I just took some washi tape and masked off the words next to the word world so that only the word world is exposed, and then I inked that up with some of the Mardi Gras ink from scrapbook.com, and I just want this word to be purple, and the rest of the stamp is going to be black. So once I have the word world stamped down, next I'm going to take some washi tape again, and I'm going to mask off just the word world so that the other words are exposed, and I'm going to ink them up with some black ink, then remove the washi tape and then stamp that down. And you can see how now my stamp sentiment is different colors. It is black, and then the word world stands out. So here I'm just going to fussy cut around the sentiment just like I did in the previous card. And I have some paper scraps here that I am going to be using on this A2 size card. I have a white A2 size card base, and I'm applying these scraps right to the card base itself. So the yellow and purple piece, that one measures 2 by 5 1/4, and the polka dot piece measures 2 by 4 1/2. And I'm going to incorporate this globe that I colored up. I also colored up off camera the floral prints, and I'm going to use 2 of those on this card and just tuck them underneath the globe, and then the sentiment will go towards the bottom. I love these colors together, the purple, green, and yellow. I think they're so pretty. I'm going to go ahead and just put some foam on the back of the sentiment so that it stands up a little bit, and then once I have that, I'll add it to the bottom of the card. And next I will color up the center of these flowers because I forgot to do that, and then I'll just add a few epoxy dots to the front of this card, and then that's going to complete this card. For my next card, I'm using the Mojo Monday Sketch 550. So I have some layers here. I am going to also be incorporating this globe, which was one of the die cut pieces, the wavy pattern paper that measures 4 by 5 1/4. The pink with white polka dot piece is 4 by 2, which is different than the card sketch. The card sketch actually showed 1.75 inches, but I was just using a piece of scrap paper that I had. And that's backed up on a piece of the blue solid cardstock, which measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I am adding some of the hearts that I die cut out of the paper pad, and I also added the sentiment, "You mean the world to me," and then that is going to be added onto an A2 size white card base. And there's the card with the card sketch, and here's a final look at the card. And moving on to card 4, I have this green piece of cardstock, which is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I'm layering on the pattern paper, which measures 4 by 5 1/4, and then that's going to be layered onto the pink cardstock, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm bringing in an oval die from Spellbinders. It's the Candlewick Ovals set, and I took this piece, die cut the glitter paper, and then I layered these 2 pieces on some white cardstock to get this fun pattern shape. And then I'm just going to glue on the white onto the glitter paper, and that glitter paper is going to shine through all of those little holes that are in that white paper. So you can see how that glitter, once that's glued on there, it shines through there, and it looks really, really pretty and sparkly. So that's going to be the center of my card, is this oval. I'm also going to take this sheet of pattern paper and fussy cut out 2 of the yellow flowers. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this oval to the center. And I'm also going to be bringing in the flower die cuts from the paper pad, and I also die cut the word hello out of some of the blue solid cardstock that matches that polka dot pattern paper. I did put some double-sided adhesive on the cardstock before running that die through the die cut machine. That die is included in the card kit. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere these flowers, one to the bottom left corner and one to the top right corner, just to enclose that oval. I also ended up fussy cutting 2 of the leaves from that pattern paper, which I didn't show that on camera, but I did fussy cut them out, and I just attached them to the yellow flower on the back with just some double-sided tape, and then I will glue the entire thing down and add it to the cluster of pink flowers. I'm also going to add some epoxy dots to the center of the flowers. And then I am going to add that entire card layer to the top of an A2 size white card base. And that will complete this card. And moving on to my next card, I die cut a scalloped rectangle out of a die from Queen & Company. It's one of their foundation die sets. This die set actually has some stitching along the edges, so I'm just adding some washi tape around that stitching because I don't want to stencil over top of the stitched line. So I'm just covering it up, just basically masking it so that when I do my stenciling, I'm not inking over the stitching of that die cut piece. So I'm using the heart stencil that was included in the card kit, and I'm just going to hold that down here with some magnets, and I'm using some inks from Pink Fresh Studio, and basically I'm going for kind of like a gradient look. So I'm starting out with some of the darker pink at the top, and that darker pink is Raspberry Bliss, followed by the medium shade, which is Bubblegum. That will lead into the next lighter shade, which is Sparkling Rose, and then I decide to bring in an even lighter shade, which is Ballet Slipper. So I have kind of a gradient going on here from dark at the top to light at the bottom. I'm also bringing in that dark pink cardstock from the kit because that matches the inks. The dark pink cardstock is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then the pattern paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then I'll layer on the scalloped rectangle on top of those. I am bringing in the globe from the die cut pieces from the paper pad, and I also die cut the word hello and a shadow in white. I was trying to decide if I wanted to include a square sentiment underneath that, but then I decided that it would look better if I just included a one-line sentiment underneath the word hello. So I go ahead and add the globe and the word hello, and then the sentiment that I'm using is "You mean the world to me." And that entire layer will go on an A2 size white card base. And to finish off this card, I'm going to add some of the sequins from the sequin mix that was included in the card kit. And that completes this card. For my next card, I'm using the MFT 555 card sketch. This sketch can be used for a slimline card, but I'm going to be making a mini slimline card with it today. So I have a piece of green paper, and that is 6 by 3 1/2. I'm layering on a piece of the purple paper, which is 5 7/8 by 3 3/8. And the purple pattern paper is 5 3/4 by 3 1/4. So layer all of those together, and then I have this strip of yellow plaid paper. It's 5 3/4 by 2. I'm going to add that across the center of that card layer. I die cut a piece of white cardstock using a 2 3/4 inch stitch circle. I'm also going to bring in these flowers to put around that circle, and I'm just positioning the stamp on there just to make sure that I have it in the right position for when I stamp it out. So I go ahead and ink it up with some black ink. The stamp says, "You are my favorite person on earth." So I'll go ahead and add that to my card front, and then I will add the flowers right around the bottom corner of that circle. I am going to stick a little piece of scrap cardstock underneath that flower just because it wasn't laying flat with all of the layers of the cardstock underneath. And then I'm going to add a heart there on the sentiment and add some of the sequins from the sequin mix. And then that entire layer will be added to a mini slimline card base that measures 6 by 3 1/2. To cut your mini slimline card base, cut a piece of paper down to 7 by 6 and score at 3 1/2 inches on the 7-inch side. And that completes my card. My next card is going to be a slimline card, and basically what I'm doing here is I stamped out the globe, and then I took a circle die and I just die cut just the circle part out of that stamped image. And I used a 2 1/2 inch circle die to do that. If you had a circle punch, you can do the same thing, but I was just trying to give you an alternate idea of how to use this stamp rather than just using it as an actual globe. I die cut a piece of white cardstock using a scalloped border die from Trinity Stamps, and I'm just inking up the edges with the Mardi Gras ink from scrapbook.com. Just wanted to add a little bit of purple on the edges to match the flowers in those circle dies. So these circles will fit perfectly across the length of the scalloped rectangle die. You can either make this card horizontal or vertical. It's really up to you. Just make sure that you have your circles centered and evenly spaced apart when you add them to your die cut rectangle. For the sentiment, I'm using this banner die. This die is part of the same die set that I got the Scalloped Rectangle Slimline die set from Trinity Stamps. And when I stamped out the sentiment, I also made sure that the word world was purple and the rest was black, just like I did with one of the previous cards by just masking off the words. I did put that up on some foam and added it to the card front and added a few of the die cut hearts from the paper pad, and then I'm just going to add some of the sequins around the card front. And then I'm going to add this to the front of a Slimline card base that measures 8.5 by 3.5. And to get your Slimline card base, just cut a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock to 8.5 by 7 and score at 3.5 inches on the 7-inch side. And this has to be my favorite card of all 10 that I created. So here's a final look, and moving on to my next card. I'm using the freshly made sketch number 253, and the floral pattern paper measures 2 7/8 by 3 1/8, and then I'm backing that up onto a piece of blue cardstock that's 3 by 3 1/4. And then I have this blue pattern paper that measures 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm backing that up on a piece of blue cardstock that's 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Next, I'm taking this piece of pattern paper and I'm just cutting out one of the pink stripes. And I stamped the sentiment on a piece of white cardstock that measures 2 by 2, and I'm backing that up on a scalloped square, and that measures 2 1/4 inches. So here I'm just cutting a diagonal off one of the ends of that piece that I cut from the pattern paper, and I'm going to add that underneath the scalloped square. So first I'm going to add the floral piece, and then I'm going to add the stripe piece, and then I'll add the scallop square right on top. I am going to put some foam on the back just to pop that up just a little bit. Next I'm going to add some of the hearts from the paper pad that I die cut out, and then I'll add that to an A2 size white card base. So here's a look at the completed card next to the card sketch, and that completes my card. For my next card, I cut down a piece of white cardstock to 4 by 5 1/4, and I used the Chevron embossing folder to emboss the paper, and I'm just inking up the top of that with some lantern light ink from scrapbook.com, and I am going to go off of a card sketch. It's the Mojo Monday 538 sketch. I added the embossed paper to a pink piece of cardstock that measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. The polka dot paper is 1 7/8 by 5 1/4, and then the plaid paper is 4 by 1 3/4. So I'm just adding those panels to the front of the card, and then I'm going to add the globe off to the left. And I did die cut the word hello with a white shadow, and the word hello is in just some black cardstock from my stash. And then I'll go ahead and add that there to the right side of the globe, and then I'll add that to an A2 size white card base. To finish this off, I will add a few of the pink epoxy dots, and that completes this card. And for this card, I'm using the OWH sketch number 83, and I'm using the exact measurements that are on the sketch. So I have the paper on the top left is 1 1/2 by 2 3/8. The top right is 2 3/8 by 2 3/8. The bottom left is 1 1/2 by 2 3/4, and the bottom right is 2 3/8 by 2 3/4. So I'm just adding those there to a piece of the green cardstock. That green cardstock measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm just making sure those are equally spaced onto that card layer. I did stamp out the sentiment onto a stitch circle die, and that is a 2 1/4 inch stitch circle. I am going to add the flower. These are the die cut flowers from the paper pad, and I'll add those to the right side of that circle. I'm just adding a few pieces of scrap paper to some of the parts of the bottom of the flower, just because it's not laying even because of all the multi-layers of cardstock underneath. And adding some of the additional layers of cardstock, it just helps it lay flat. So next I'm going to add that to an A2 size card base, and then I will add a few epoxy dots, and that will complete this card. So here are all the 10 cards I made with this card kit. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know which card was your favorite. If you're interested in purchasing this kit, I will have a link down below in the description box. At the time of filming, it is currently available, and I believe it's only available until a new kit comes out, which is on the 1st of the month. So you would have until August 31st if you want to purchase this kit. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe and turn on your bell notifications so that you can be notified every time I release a new video. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and have a great day. Bye-bye.